I'm Hannah Moore, CFP, a practicing financial planner and educator. I'm on a mission to change the way people think and talk about money. Let's get started. I've worked with a lot of clients who are nearing retirement or transitioning into retirement. And one of the conversations that I always have with them is, what are they retiring to? Now, I'm going to share some of these tips with you, but I don't think this is just a retirement conversation. I think this is a conversation that we should all be thinking about. So there was a paper that came out a while ago around this idea of flow, this idea about what makes life just really fulfilled and engaging, right? So a lot of people, when they get to retirement, think like they've made it, that they finally reached this point. They retire and they're miserable. It is unfortunately a very, very real thing. And so a lot of people who are approaching retirement, they get to this point where they realize like, hey, like, wait, what am I going to be doing? What does this look like? Right. And so with my clients, before they get to retirement, I usually have this conversation around flow. What are these keys to happiness, right? These keys to a fulfilled life that are just so important for us as humans to have. Now, there's 4 elements of this, and I think this applies again to all areas, all ages and walks of life. I think of myself kind of where I am in my career. And this is something that I've looked at for myself when I'm looking at what are some of the gaps in my life. It's a great way of just looking at it and just mapping out what would this look like. So if you're listening to this and you want to do this exercise, what you would simply do is list out each one of these elements that I'm about to walk you through, and then list out what is it that you are doing in this area right now in your life. Where are these, what does this look like? And where are the gaps? And where those gaps are is usually going to show you kind of an area of your life that you want to be fulfilling, get more fulfillment in. Now, you might say, okay, Hannah, I tuned into a financial podcast. Like, this is supposed to be about money. Like, what the heck? Like, you just give me life tips here. But the thing that I find is that people use money to try to fill these gaps in without even knowing what these gaps are, right? And, obviously I'm talking about retirement and kind of this happiness and fulfillment in your retirement. I think this applies to, all ages, all stages of life, but it's absolutely tied to our money because oftentimes we're using money as a substitute versus actually looking at what is it that we really, really need in our life. Okay, so 4 elements of flow. So first of all, we need social, right? So we need to be involved in activities that are social, even down to my work. When I'm working, there are social aspects to my work, right? So looking at what are the places where you have social interaction, hugely important on that. Second of all is routine, right? I like to think of myself as not the best person on routines, but there is some element of every week doing something, every month doing something, and this having just a regular pattern to whatever this could be. I have some friends I love to grab lunch with, right? But I am not good about making sure that is scheduled into my calendar. And so I've had a couple people where we have on a rolling quarterly basis, we'll go out for lunch or something like that. And that has helped me tremendously of making sure that I'm prioritizing what is important to me on my calendar. The third is we need a challenge in life. Like, this is more than just life is like we're wired for that. Like, we want something that's going to push us, it's going to grow us. And this is going to look different for everyone, right? You may hear that and go get your master's degree. I don't think I'm going to go get my master's degree anytime soon. You may hear that, and it may be taking a cooking class. It may be doing a challenging recipe kind of on this cooking theme. It may be running, right? Whatever that may be, there's going to be this challenging aspect to it. And then the last piece is that we need measurable goals. We need measurable things that we can measure. And not even necessarily goals, but we need to be able to see progress. And that's just an inherently a human desire that we have. And so when we look at this, so for my retired clients, what I have them do is I have them list out all the activities that they have in their life right now. And then I have them list out what are the things that they want to do in retirement. Like, let's imagine your dream retirement situation. And then I have them list those out. And then across the top, we'll list these 4 elements out, and I have them just simply check the box. Do they match these? Do any of these activities fit within this larger context, right? And ideally, do any of these activities have all 4 elements in it? And really starting to give this idea, because one of the things that we find with retired clients is they have a bucket list, and I love me a good bucket list. So don't get me wrong on this, but a lot of those are one-time events. I want to go on this trip. I want to do this one thing. I want to do, this or that. And a bucket list can take you 6 to 18 months is usually what we see as financial planners. And then the question becomes, what do you do after that? And so I maintain, and I would argue, and based on my experience that I've seen with clients, is that people who are able to construct a life that has activities, not just activities, but just a rhythm of life that has these 4 elements in it, are going to be far more content. They're going to be far more happier. They are going to be more happier with their choices in life, and they're going to have this contentment with their money as well. And so, when I think about this, so yes, it makes total sense on retirees as they're going through major life transitions. I'm a mom. I have young kids, and I think about this for stay-at-home moms as they're transitioning into that space of realizing how important this is. Really, I think what's important is, yes, we can look at it for our daily lives, but as we make transitions in our lives, as we make that big job change, as we make that big move, as we make that big, whatever it is, that big transition that you're making, those are the points to really evaluate this. Because what we don't want is, because transition implies that you're giving something up. You're getting something new and you're giving something up, right? Great thing to be doing. All of us are in transitions all the time. But when we make these major life transitions, how are we going to be happy on the other side? Because a good, I don't want to say always, but often if we make transitions and don't transition well, there can be financial consequences to that. And so by looking at this, even before we go into these transitions, it can make a huge, huge impact on our happiness and how we navigate those transitions. And so I think that's just incredibly important. So no matter what your life stage is, certainly if you're going into retirement, yes, absolutely grab that pen and paper. But if you're also having other life changes, consider this. Okay, so I'm going to give you one example from my personal life. I was 20, I was young, coming straight out of school, and I loved the school calendar, right? You go in for, January you started a semester, May you graduated, you knew what your classes were, you knew what you had to do to achieve it. It fit these categories. It was social, there was other people, there was routine, I was in class on a regular basis. It was challenging, I was measured, right? I had all these pieces. And so it was a very clear the beginning and the end, right? I could achieve as much or as little as I wanted to do in that experience. And so I graduated from college and I started working professionally. Now, you may or may not know, as financial planners, there's a lot of designations. There's a lot of education that we have to get beyond just a college degree. And oftentimes you don't even need a college degree, but there's lots of different certifications and licenses and things like that. And so I spent the next 2 years getting my licenses and certifications. And it was the same thing. I knew what I was going into. I had those same elements. Now, when I finished all of this, I remember I passed my CFP, my Certified Financial Planner designation. It was a really big one. It's challenging, all the things. And I passed it, and I remember going to work and being like, wait, what's next? And just feeling completely lost because I lost this element of my life that had all these pieces to it. And so what I did is I went to look for an activity that could fill those gaps. Now, I don't know that I articulated this or I knew what I was doing thoughtfully, but I got into quilting. As I love quilting. I love me a good modern quilt. And so I went and started taking these classes. And what I loved about it was that each project, you could be social. There's lots of quilting things and activities to be involved in. You could make it as part of your routine. There is a challenge level to it, right? Like, how difficult am I going to make it? You can submit your quilt to a quilt show if you want to do that. There's lots of different elements of it, but I found it really, really fulfilling for me to be able to start a project and end a project. I was finding flow in my new hobby. And so that was really important for me. Now, I mentioned I have young kids, so I don't quilt nearly as much as I used to. In fact, I still have my daughter's first quilt that is unfinished. I haven't touched quilting since she was born, but it really helped. It really helped me kind of in that transition. And so, as you guys are thinking about these transition, I don't know what that's going to look like for you, but be thinking about these 4 elements. Be thinking in terms of what do you have in your life, and be thinking about something that could possibly fit, and ideally fit all 4 of these elements, because that's what some of the research has shown makes people really happy. So as we go through these major transitions in life, think about that, because that'll make a big difference in helping you navigate those transitions well. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everyday Money with Hannah Moore. If you like what you heard, subscribe and check out livewealthynow.com. We have a lot more resources to help you live wealthy now.